Hello, so today we're here on the showcase. My name is Michael Akindele and I'm joined here today by...
I'm a legal practitioner.
I'm a legal practitioner and entrepreneur.
Okay. With all these legal people in house, one of the most important things that a lot of entrepreneurs and just people in general need to understand is how do you protect your intellectual property? But before we actually go into that, what is intellectual property? Ete, can you please let us know what intellectual property is?
Principally, intellectual property concerns creations of the mind. It's confined to issues like literary works, musical works, artistic works, industrial designs, trademarks, and patents, inventions. So if, for instance, you can come up with a better telescope than Galileo did, then you could go register for a patent. That becomes intellectual property.
Okay. And from your experience, given the fact that you've been in the industry, in the entertainment industry, how have you seen, in terms of people in general in Nigeria and their approach towards intellectual property?
Well, I think there's been a huge shift. I think 10 years ago, people weren't that aware of what their rights were or what IP was in the first place. And some of the excitement that we're getting over Nollywood and the music industry and etc. is due to the fact that there's a greater appreciation of intellectual property. So I think that there's been a huge shift. People are now quite aware that if you use a logo without getting the permission, you can sue. If you use a song, then you deserve to pay me something for using that song or even a picture. So I think there's a great improvement.
What's the enforcement like for intellectual property?
Well, intellectual property is basically restricted to territories. So you enjoy protection in Nigeria if you're a Nigerian citizen or you're domiciled in Nigeria and you publish your work in Nigeria. And then you have transborder protection for countries that are part of the Berne Convention or signatories to the Berne Convention, for instance, so you can get protection in the US. But basically, the fact that it's confined to territory, it will make enforcement, it's hard, difficult. But there are actions that you can take by going to court. There are criminal sanctions. And like he mentioned, there's been a shift. So people are becoming more aware. And then regarding the crackdown on piracy in the marketplace and major distribution centers, it's clear that people are taking steps to ensure that those infringements are reduced. Fine, with digital distribution, there's going to always be that issue because the internet is, as it's called, the World Wide Web. So controlling it is a bit difficult, and I don't think it's just a Nigerian problem. I think it's actually a global problem. So first of all, people have to be aware of responsibility or responsible access or respecting people's copyright and intellectual property generally.
Do people respect intellectual property?
I think in the end, it's going to come down to people have to be responsible because, like I said, you knock down one side today, another side comes up tomorrow. So if people do not realize the fact that you're killing investments, you're killing creativity, then there's only so much that enforcement can actually do.
Well, I actually think it's also a function of education.
Exactly.
Because people do not even understand that there's an infringement in the first place.
What's happening on the federal level to kind of support and be able to enable more enforcement for intellectual property?
Okay, well, a few weeks ago, we actually inaugurated something called the Digital Music Monitoring Group.
Okay.
And this was initiated by the Copyright Society of Nigeria, and we'll also be working with the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, the NSA's office, the Nigerian Communications Commission, the Nigerian Copyright Commission as well, and then telcos and etc. And the idea behind this group is that we need to force or help to enforce the enforcement of intellectual property because a lot of money is being lost on a daily.
Exactly.
And these people are creating some of the best music Nigeria has ever had, and they're not getting the reward for it. So what will happen is that in 20, 30 years' time, they'll be broke. And unless we start enforcing that, and I think that there's His Excellency the Vice President actually made a speech in which he reiterated the need for them to do something about the enforcement regime. We're hoping that with the changes and with the new ministers on board, we would have much more teeth that will back some of the policies that have been made already.
Okay, it's good to hear that people on the federal level that we're getting more support for intellectual property. But so for the average 18 to 34-year-old out there, once they have an idea, how do you go about registering intellectual property?
Well, first of all, you have to reduce the idea to a form from which it can be reproduced because an idea just stays within the realm of your imagination. If it's not capable of being communicated, then it's not capable of being protected.
Okay, so that means it has to be in written form.
Yes, it has to be reduced into something that can be reproduced because, like I said, copyright extends beyond literary works. It extends to music.
Okay.
Exactly, so you can have recordings.
Okay.
So you approach the Copyright Society or rather the Nigerian Copyright Commission.
Okay.
Yes, and then you fill out an application, you pay the required fees, and then they issue you a certificate.
Okay.
So it's that easy. Interestingly, the Copyright Act, the Nigerian Copyright Act, doesn't make registration mandatory because technically once you're the original creator of a work, you already have copyright as a matter of course. It's sort of like an automatic conferment. But for the sake of those people who do not know and who you want to notify that, okay, you know what, I put my stamp on this work, I did this, I want to be acknowledged, I want to get economic compensation for it, then you register with the Copyright Commission. And then before they can have third parties make copies or have access to your works, then the third parties have to confer with you. The Copyright Commission is empowered to keep a bank of works. So yes, they will collect your works and then they will have them in their reservoir, as it were. But for third parties to have access to your works, they have to come and meet you for authorization. So in a sense, you have communicated to interested people that I'm in charge, I did this. You need to speak to me if you need to use it.
Okay. Just to summarize, I mean, we spoke about intellectual property, and intellectual property is basically any idea, composition, creative works that you basically produce. It's important that you understand how intellectual property works. Once you sort of have an idea or concept or even a service or app or a patent, it's important that you understand how to go about registering it. And once you register it, seek out help, reach out to attorneys, ask for advice, and try to understand how you can protect your intellectual property. There are lots of monitoring groups, there are lots of regulatory bodies that are sort of taking on initiatives to protect people's intellectual property. So it's important that you try to be informed on how to protect your intellectual property. Thank you for joining us today on the showcase, and bye.